Verses 1 through 3, I will protect you, but only if you change your ways. He says, number one, I need you to pay attention. He says, I want to get your attention. Number one, I need to get your attention. Number two, he says, I need you to change your ways. Number three, not only do you change your ways, I want you to live right. He says, start living right. Change your ways. Let's talk about it. In verses 4 and 5, he said, don't you fool yourself. You come to church, but that alone don't protect you. You come in my temple, but there is no protection, just coming. You're dishonest with each other, not just with God, but he said you're dishonest with each other. He says, stop taking advantage of the foreigners. And what he meant, stop taking advantage of different people. Stop taking advantage of children and widows. He says, don't kill innocent people. He said, your tongue, you has used as a weapon to kill innocent people. Who are the innocent people? The innocent people are the ones that God have chosen and ordained to do his work. And when you put your mouth on them, he said, I saw you and I heard you. Stop worshiping idols. He said, people don't understand that and get lost when you say stop worshiping idols. He said, let me clarify that for you. Stop putting things before me.
Yes. Amen.
Anything that you put before me is considered an idol. I don't care if it's your husband. I don't care if it's your wife. I don't care if it's your children. I don't care if it's your job. I don't care if it's your money. I don't care if it's your house. I don't care if it's your car. It's an idol when you put it before God. Verse 7, he comes back again. And he starts from the first verse and he rebukes us as a nation. He rebukes us as a church. But he comes back, and because he's a loving God, he comes back and he says one more time, but if you would just change your ways. He says, I want to kill you. But because of my loving kindness, if you would just change. If you would change. Verses 8 through 15, he says, look at yourself. Do a self-evaluation. Don't you look at nobody. Don't you think about what your husband has done or is doing. Don't you look at your wife and don't you bring up nothing against your wife. Don't you look at your children and think about no sins that they commit. Don't you look at the pastor and point your finger at him for anything that you think he has ever done wrong. Don't you look at none of your leaders, at none of the elders, at none of the ministers and point your finger. He says, examine yourself.
Amen.
He says, take a look at you. The flesh will cause you to look at others, but the spirit will cause you to examine yourself.
Yes.
He said, you trust in worthless lies. You'll believe a lie before you believe the truth. He says, I've sent word again through the pastor, the angel of this church, through other ministers. I sent word to encourage you. I sent word to plead you. I sent word to beg you. I sent word saying, come on, get it right. I've encouraged you when I should have rebuked you. But I encourage you. He says, but I'm not encouraging you no more. I'm rebuking you. He said, you lie. You go to court and you tell lies. You come to church and you tell lies. You come before my presence and you lie to me. You lie to God's people. You're not doing it to them. You do it to me. He says when you do it, you don't do it to them. You don't do it to your pastor. You do it unto God. He said you're unfaithful in your marriage. It speaks for itself. He said you worship idols and you offer incense to Baal. What are you saying here, God? We don't serve Baal, God. What must you be talking about, God? Well, the incense, when they would burn incense, you start talking about it in the tabernacle. When we begin to pray, the Bible talks about that our prayers begin to come up as a sweet smelling smell to God. So the righteous prayers smell good in his nostrils. But what the enemy comes to do, if he can first distract you from prayer, number one, if he can get you to stop coming to prayer, that's his first assignment. But number two, if you push and press to get the prayer, then if you get the prayer, his second assignment is to stop you from praying. So you burn an incense to Baal because you refuse to pray. You refuse to bow before a God that can change you, and you refuse to cry for help. He says, you've taken my house for granted. He said, I put this place here for you. I don't need you. You need me. I'm trying to make it easy for you. He said, but you take my house for granted. He says, you don't give me true worship. He said, this is a place to worship me. And the enemy comes to distract you, not to worship me. He said, but this is a place of worship. This is not a place for you to come and commune with your cousins, for you to come and see your friends. He said, even family members, I warn you. He said, this is not a place for you to come and see your mama, to come and see your sister, to come and see your brother, your daughter, your son. I didn't put you here for this. He said, if you continue with this mind, if you continue in doing it, he said, you'll come to this church and you'll mourn because I'll take you. Right in your presence, I snatch one of you. You'll look for your brother and not see your brother. You'll look for your sister and not see your sister. You'll look for your mother and wonder what happened. He says, because I've allowed you to come in here. I've called you. And he said, many are called, but few are chosen. And he began to say, but I want to tell you something about that. He said, yes, I explained that many called, few are chosen. He said, but many I keep calling, many people, but few refuse to choose to accept the call that I'm calling. Many are called, but few people answer the call. He said, I've been calling you. He said, some of you, I'm going to speak to you directly. You can't sleep. Read Jeremiah 7. He says, I steal your sleep away because I'm trying to talk to you. I'm trying to let you know. See, one thing about God, God is omnipotent, omniscient. Omniscient means he's all-knowing. He sees how close destruction is when we don't see it. It is the enemy's job that as destruction gets close to us, to distract us so we don't see the destruction. So when we sitting there taking it